Westing Game by Ellen Raskin. Day 4, Chapter 12, The First Bomb. It was so sudden. The ear-splitting bangs, the screams, the confusion. Theo and Doug ran into the kitchen. Miss Theodorcus ran out. Her hair, her face, her apron were splattered with dark, dripping red. Blood, Sidel Pulaski cried, clutching her heart. Don't just sit there, Catherine Theodorcus shouted. Somebody called the fire department. Angela hurried to the payphone on the wall and stood there trembling, not knowing whether to call or not. They were snowbound. The fire engines could not reach Sunset Towers. Theo leaned through the kitchen doorway. Everything's okay. There's no fire. Chris, honey, it's all right, Mrs. Theodorcus said, kneeling before the wheelchair. It's all right, Chris. Look, it's just tomato sauce. Tomato sauce? Mrs. Theodorcus was covered with tomato sauce, not blood. The curious heirs now piled into the kitchen, except for Sidel Pulaski, who slumped to the counter. She could have a heart attack, and no one would notice. Mr. Hu surveyed the scene, trying to conceal his delight. What a mess, he said. That row of cans must have exploded from the heat of the stove. The entire kitchen was splattered with tomato sauce and soaked in foam from fire extinguishers. What a mess. George Theodorcus regarded him with suspicion. It was a bomb. Catherine Theodorcus thought so too. There was hissing, then bang, bang, sparks flying all over the kitchen, red sparks, purple sparks. Cans of tomato sauce exploded, Doug Hu said, defending his father. The others agreed. Mrs. Theodorcus was understandably hysterical. A bomb? Ridiculous. Sam Westing certainly did not appear to have been killed by a bomb. Judge Ford suggested that the accident be reported to the police immediately in order to collect on the insurance. You might as well redecorate the entire kitchen, Grace Wexler, decorator, proposed. It should be functional yet attractive, with lots of copper pots hanging from the ceiling. I don't think there's any real damage, Catherine Theodorcus replied, but we'll have to close for a few days to clean up. Mr. Hu smiled. Angela offered to help. Angela, dear, you have a fitting this afternoon, Grace reminded her, and we have so much to do for the wedding shower on Saturday. In thumped Sidel Pulaski. I'm fine now, just a bit woozy. Goodness, what a nasty turn. Having recovered from the nasty turn, Sidel Pulaski settled down into transcribing her shorthand to Polish, then from Polish to English. Startled by loud banging on her apartment door, she struck the wrong typewriter key. Open up. Recognizing the voice, Angela unbolted the door to a furious Turtle. All right, Angela, where is it? What? The newspaper you took from my desk. Angela carefully dug through the embroidery, personal items, and other paraphernalia in her tapestry bag and pulled out the newspaper folded to the Westing obituary. I'm sorry, Turtle. I would have asked for it, but you weren't around. You don't also happen to have my Mickey Mouse clock in there, too, do you? Turtle softened on seeing her sister's hurt expression. I'm only kidding. You left your engagement ring on the sink again. But go get it before somebody steals that, too. Oh, I wouldn't worry about anyone stealing Angela's ring, Sidel Pulaski remarked. No mother would stoop that low. The thought of Grace being the burglar was so funny to Turtle. She plopped down on the sofa and rolled about in laughter. It felt good to laugh. The stock market had fallen 5 points today. Angela, please tell your sister to get her dirty shoes off my couch. Tell her to sit up and act like a lady. Turtle rose with a tongue click, very much like her mother's, but she was not about to leave without striking back. Arms folded, she leaned against the wall and let them have it. Mom thinks Angela was the one who stole the shorthand notebook. That got them. Look at those open mouths. Because Mom asked to see it, and Angela does everything she says. Anyone could have stolen my notebook. I didn't double lock my door that day. Sidel couldn't trust her own partner. She was alone, all alone. Did Mom really say that? Angela asked. No, but I know how she thinks. I know what everybody thinks. Grown-ups are so obvious. Ridiculous, scoffed Sidel. For instance, I know that Angela doesn't want to marry that sappy intern. Ridiculous. You're just jealous of your sister. Maybe, Turtle had to admit. But I am what I am. I don't need a crush to get attention. Oh, she had gone too far. Turtle didn't mean it that way, Sidel, Angela said quickly. She used the word crutch as a symbol. She meant, that people are so afraid of revealing their true selves, they have to hide behind some sort of prop. Oh, really? Sidel replied. Then Turtle's crutch is her big mouth. No, Angela thought, hurrying her sister out of the door and back to their apartment. Turtle's crutch is her braid. The newspaper called again to say he had found some photographs taken at Westingtown parties 20 years ago. One of those names appears in a caption as Violet Westing's escort, George Theodorcus. Go on, the judge said. That's all. He promised to send her the clippings in the Westing file as soon as he was shoveled out. The judge now knew of 4 heirs with Westing connections: James Hu, the inventor, Theo's father, her partner, Sandy McSuthers, who had been fired from the Westing paper mill, and herself. But she had to learn more, much more, about each of the heirs if she hoped to protect the victim of Sam Westing's revenge. She would have to hire a detective, a very private detective, who had not been associated with her in her practice or in the courts. J.J. Ford flipped through the yellow pages to investigators, private. Good grief! Her finger stopped near the top of the list. Was it a coincidence or dumb luck? Or was she playing right into Sam Westing's hand? No choice but to chance it. The judge dialed the number and tapped her foot impatiently, waiting for an answer. Hello, if you are looking for a snowbound private investigator, you've got the right number. Yes, she had the right number. It might be a trick, but it was no coincidence. The voices were one and the same. Chapter 13, The Second Bomb. No one was in the kitchen of Shin Hu's restaurant when the bomber set a tall can labeled monosodium glutamate behind similar cans on a shelf. The color-striped candle would burn down to the fuse at 6:30. Whoever was working there would be at the other end of the room. No one would be hurt. Due to the unfortunate damage to the coffee shop, Shin Hu's restaurant is prepared to satisfy all dinner accommodations. Order down or ride up to the 5th floor. Treat your taste buds to a scrumptious meal while feasting your eyes on the stunning snowscape before it melts away. Reasonable prices, too. Grace Wexler tacked her sign to the elevator wall as she rode up to her new job. She was going to be the seating hostess. Where's the cook? Mr. Hu shouted, meaning his wife. He found Madame Hu in their rear 4th floor apartment, kneeling before her bamboo trunk, fingering mementos from her childhood in China. He hurried her up to the kitchen, too harried to find the words that would explain what was happening. Now where was that lazy son of his? Dog jogged in from a tiring workout on the stairs. He was supposed to know the restaurant would open early. Nobody bothered telling him. Some student you are. Anyone with the brain of an anteater could have figured that out. People are short of food. The coffee shop is closed for repairs. Stop arguing. Go take a shower and put on your busboy outfit. Get moving. Don't you think you're rather hard on the boy? Grace commented. Somebody's got to give him a shove. If he had his way, he'd do nothing but run, Hu replied, between bites of chocolate. You're not so easy on Angela, either. Angela was born good, the perfect child. As for the other one, well, it's not easy being a parent, Hu said woefully. You can say that again, Grace held her breath. Her husband would have done just that, said it again, but Mr. Hu only nodded in shared sympathy. What a gentleman. Only Mr. and Mrs. Theodorakis ordered down. The other tenants of Sunset Towers lined up at the reservations desk, waiting for Grace Windsor Wexler to lead the way. Oversized menus clutched in her arms, Grace felt the first proud stirrings of power rush up from her pedicured toes to the very top curl on her head. If Uncle Sam could pair off people, so could she. You see your brother every day, Chris. How about eating with someone else for a change? She wheeled the boy to a window table without waiting for an answer. It would have been yes, the two cripples together, Sidel Pulaski thought. She'd show that high and mighty hostess. She'd show them all. She and Chris could have private jokes, too, and everybody would be sorry they weren't sitting with them. Was Gupin? Chris asked, baffled by the strange words on the menu. I think it's boiled grasshopper. Sidel screwed up her face and Chris laughed. Or chocolate-covered mousse. French fry mousse, Chris offered. Now Sidel laughed. They both laughed heartily, but no one envied them. Your brother seems to be enjoying Miss Pulaski, Theo nodded, awed by the beautiful Angela, 3 years older than he, so fair-skinned and blonde, so unattainable. Here he was, sitting at the very same table with her, just the two of them, and he couldn't think of a single thing to say that wasn't stupid or childishly stupid. Usually, the quiet one, Angela tried again. Are you planning to go to college next year? Theo nodded, then shook his head. Say something, idiot. I got a scholarship to Madison, but I'm not going. I'm going to work instead. What? Big, worried sky blue eyes. The operation for Chris would be very expensive. That was worse. Now she's feeling sorry for him. If Chris had been born that way, maybe it wouldn't be so bad, but he was a perfectly normal kid. A great kid. And he's smart, too. About 4 years ago, he started to get clumsy. Just little things at first. Perhaps my fiancé can help. Angela bit her lip. Theo was not asking for charity. And fiancé, what an old-fashioned, silly word. I went to college for a year. I wanted to be a doctor, but, well, we don't have as much money as my mother pretends. Dad said he could manage if that's what I really wanted, but my mother said it was too difficult for a woman to get into medical school. Why was she gabbing like this? I want to be a writer, Theo said. That really sounded like kid stuff. Would you go back to college if you won the inheritance? Angela looked down. It was a question she did not want to answer, or could not answer. Long before becoming a judge, Josie Joe Ford had decided to stop smiling. Smiling, without good reason, was demeaning. A serious face put the smiler on defensive. A rare smile put a nervous witness at ease. She now bestowed one of her rare smiles on the dressmaker. I'm so glad we have this chance to become acquainted, Mrs. Baumbach. I had so little time to chat with my guests last night. It was a wonderful party. Flora Baumbach appeared even smaller and rounder than she was as she sat twisting her napkin with hands accustomed to being busy. Was her face permanently creased from years of pleasing customers, or was a tragedy lurking behind that grin? Have you always specialized in wedding gowns? Mr. Baumbach and I had a shop for many years. Baumbach's for the bride and groom. Perhaps you've heard of it. I'm afraid not. The judge would have said no in any case to keep her witness talking. Perhaps you have heard of Flora's bridal gowns? That's what I called my shop after my husband left. I don't know much about groom's clothes. They're mostly rentals anyway. Flora Baumbach lost her timidity. The judge let her chat away. I'm using heirloom lace on the bodice of Angela's gown. It's been in my family for 3 generations. I wore it at my wedding, and I dreamed that someday I'd have a daughter who would wear it too. But Rosalie didn't come along until I was in my 40s, and the dressmaker stopped. Her lips tightened into an even wider grin. Angela will make such a beautiful bride. Funny how she reminds me of her. Angela reminds you of your daughter? The judge asked. Oh my, no. Angela reminds me of another young girl I made a wedding dress for, Violet Westing. The heavy charms on Sidel Pulaski's bracelet clanked and clunked as she raised the full fork and flourished it in a practiced ritual before aiming it at her open mouth. Chris's movements were even jerkier. She's a good person, he thought, but she thinks too much about herself. Maybe she never had anybody to love. Here, let me help you to some of this delicious sweet and sour ostrich. Their laughter drowned out the loud groan from another table when Turtle sat alone, a transistor radio plugged in her ear. The stock market had dropped another 12 points. I'm starved. Let's sit down to eat. Head held high, Grace Wexler led her husband across the restaurant. All I want is corned beef sandwich, not a guided tour. Would you prefer to sit alone or with that young lady over there? I thought I was going to sit with you. Please be seated, Grace replied. Mr. Who, will take your order shortly. Jake snatched the menu from his wife and watched her glide gracefully, he had to admit, to the reservations desk and whisper into Who's ear. Jimmy, she calls him. That's a fine kettle of fish, he exclaimed, then turned to his dinner companion. Fine kettle of fish. I'm so hungry, even that sounds good. And from the looks of this menu, that's probably what I'll get. I'm okay, Turtle replied, the final prices of actively traded stocks rumbling in her ear. Mr. Who waddled over. I recommend the striped bass. See, what did I tell you? A kettle of fish. Turtle switched off the radio. She had heard enough bad news for one day. How about spare ribs done to a crisp? Who suggested. Then he lowered his voice. What's the point spread on the Packers game? See you later, Jake muttered. Go get him. Go ahead and tell him, Daddy, Turtle said. I know you are a bookie. Can you stand on your legs? Sidel Pulaski asked. Can you walk at all? People never asked Chris those questions. They whispered them to his parents behind his back. No, why? What better disguise for a thief or a murderer than a wheelchair, the perfect alibi? Chris enjoyed being taken for the criminal type. Now they really were friends. When you read me notes... What? Oh, read you my notes? Soon, very soon. Sidel daintily touched the corners of her mouth with the napkin, pushed back to her chair, and grabbed her polka dot crutch. That was a superb meal. I must give my compliments to the chef. She rose, knocking the chair to the floor, and clumped toward the kitchen door. Where's she going? Angela started up to tell her partner, was distracted by shouting in the corridor. Hello in there. Anybody home? Through the restaurant door came a bundled and booted figure. He danced an elephant jig, stomping snow on the carpet, flung a long wooden scarf from his neck, and yelled, Otis Amber's here. The roads are clear. That's when the bomb went off. Nobody move. Everybody stay where you are, Mr. Who shouted as he rushed into the sizzling, crackling kitchen. Just a little mishap, Grace Wexler explained, taking her command post in the middle of the restaurant. Nothing to worry about. Eat up before your food gets cold. A cluster of red sparks hissed through the swinging kitchen door, kissed the ceiling, and rained a shimmering shower down and around the petrified hostess. Fireflies of color faded into her honey blonde hair and scattered into ash at her feet. "Nothing to worry about," she repeated hoarsely. "Just celebrating the Chinese New Year," Otis Amber shouted, adding one of his he cackles. Mr. Hu leaned through the kitchen doorway, his shiny straight black hair, even shinier and straighter, plastered to his forehead, water dribbling down his moon-shaped face. "Call an ambulance. There's been a slight accident." Angela dashed past Mr. Hu into the kitchen. Jake Wexler made the emergency telephone call and sent Theo to the lobby to direct the ambulance attendants. "Why are you standing there like a statue?" Hu shouted at his son. "You told everybody to stay where they were," Doug said. "You're not everybody." Madame Hu tried to make the injured woman as comfortable as possible on the debris-strewn floor. Angela found the sequined spectacles, wiped off the wet, crystalline mess, and placed them on her partner's nose. "Don't look so worried, Angela. I'm all right." Sidel was in pain, but she wanted attention on her own terms, not as a hapless, foolish victim of fate. "Looks like a fracture," an ambulance attendant said, feeling her right ankle. "Careful how you lift her." The secretary suppressed a grunt. It was bad enough being drenched by the overhead sprinkler and draped with noodles. Now they were carrying her right past them all. Grace pulled Angela away from the stretcher. "You can visit your friend in a few days." "Angela, Angela," Sidel moaned. Pride or not, she wanted her partner at her side. Angela stood between her determined mother and her distraught partner, paralyzed by the burden of choice. "Go with your friend, Angie Pye," Jake Wexler said. Other voices chimed in. "Go with Pulaski." Grace realized she had lost. "Perhaps you should go to the hospital, Angela. It's been so long since you've seen your Dr. D." She winked mischievously, but only Flora Baumbach smiled back. The policeman had the fire inspector visiting the scene agreed that it was nothing more than a gas explosion. Good thing the sprinkler system worked, or Mr. Hu might have had a good fire. "What kind of fire is a good fire?" Hu wanted to know. "And what about the burglaries?" Grace Wexler asked. "I'm the bomb squad," the police explained. "You'll have to call the robbery detail for that." "And what about the coffee shop accident?" Theo asked. "Also a gas explosion?" Jake Wexler asked about the odds of having 2 explosions in 2 days in the same building. "Nothing unusual," the fireman replied, "especially in weather like this. No ventilation, snowpack over the ducts." He instructed the tenants to air out their kitchens before lighting ovens. Mrs. Wexler turned up the heat in her apartment and kept the windows open for the next 3 days. She did not want anything blowing up during Angela's party, but the Wexler apartment was exactly where the bomber planned to set the next bomb. Chapter 14, Pairs Repaired. The snowplows plowed and a warm sun finished the job of freeing the tenants of Sunset Towers and the figure in the Westinghouse from their wintry prisons. Angela, disguised in her mother's old beaver coat and hat and turtle red boots, was the first one out. Following Sidel's instructions, she hastily searched under the hood of every car in the parking lot. Nothing was there. Nothing, that is, that didn't seem to belong to an automobile engine. So much for good gracious from hood space. Next came Flora Baumbach. Behind her, a bootless turtle tiptoed through puddles. Miracle of miracles, the rusty and battered Chevy started, but the dressmaker's luck went downhill from there. First, the hood of her car flew up in the middle of traffic. Then, after 2 hours of watching mysterious symbols move across the lighted panel on the wall of the broker's office, her eyes began to cross. After 3 hours, the grin faded from her face. "I'm getting dizzy," she said, shifting her position on the hard wooden folding chair. "And worse yet, I think I've got a splinter in my fanny." "Look, there goes one of our stocks," Turtle replied. Flora Baumbach caught a glimpse of SEA, $5.8.5, as it was about to magically disappear off the left edge of the moving screen. "Oh my, I've forgotten what that means." Turtle sighed. "It means 500 shares of SEA was traded at $8.50 a share." "What did we pay?" "Never mind, just write down the prices of our stocks as they cross the tape like I'm doing. Once school opens, it's all up to you." Turtle did not tell her partner that they had bought 200 shares of SEA at $15.25 a share. On that stock alone, they had a loss of $1,350, not counting commissions. It took nerves of steel to play the stock market. "The Mercedes is white, clean, and shiny like new," the doorman boasted. His face reddened around old scars as he rejected a folded $5 bill. "No tips, Judge, please. Not after all you've done for the wife and me." The judge had given him the entire $10,000. J.J. Ford pocketed the bill, and to make amends for her thoughtless gesture, asked the doorman about his family. Sandy, perched on the edge of a straight-backed chair, adjusted his round-wired frame glasses repaired at the bridge with adhesive tape across his broken nose, and told about his children. 2 boys still in high school, 1 daughter married and expecting my 3rd grandchild. Her husband just lost his job, so they all moved in with us. Another daughter who works part-time as a typist. She plays the piano real good. And 2 sons who work in a brewery. Must have been difficult supporting such a large family, the judge said. Not so bad. I picked up odd jobs here and there after I got fired from the Westing plant for trying to organize the union. But mostly I boxed. I wasn't no middleweight contender, but I wasn't bad either. Got my face smashed up a few times, too many though. Still get some pretty bad headaches and my brain gets sort of fuzzy. Some dummy of a partner you got stuck with, huh, Judge? Well, we'll do just fine, partner. Judge Ford's attempt at familiarity fell flat. I did try to phone you, but your name was not listed. We don't have a phone no more. Couldn't afford it with the kids making so many calls. But I did make some headway on our clues. Want to see? Sandy removed a piece of paper from the inside of his cap and placed it on the desk. Judge Ford noticed a flask protruding from the back pocket of his uniform, but his breath smelled of peppermint. The clues has figured out by Alexander McSuthers. Skies am shining brother. Skies, Dr. Sykes witnessed the will. Am, brother, Amber, Otis Amber. Shining, Shin, the middle name of James Shin Chu, who, or what turtle kicks. Brother, Theo or Chris Theodorcus. Remarkable, the judge commented to Sandy's delight. However, we are looking for 1 name, not 6. Gee, Judge, I forgot, Sandy said dejectedly. Judge told him about Theo's proposal, but Sandy refused to go along. It seems too easy, the clues adding up to one message, especially for a shrewd guy like Westing. Let's stick it out together, just the 2 of us. After all, I got me the smartest partner of them all. Shallow flattery for the big tipper, the judge thought. McSuthers was not a stupid man. If only he was less obsequious and less of gossip. The doorman scratched his head. What I can't figure out, Judge, is why I'm one of the heirs. Unless Uncle Sam Westing just up and died and there's no murderer. Unless Sam Westing is out to get somebody from his grave. I agree with you entirely, McSuthers. We have to find out is who is 16 heirs here. And which one, as you say, was Westing out to get. Sandy beamed. They were going to play it his way. What you need is an advertising campaign. What I need is my half of the $10,000. $5,000 is what I estimate the redecorating and the newspaper ads will cost. Get out of here. Get out. Grace stared at Hugh's smooth, broad face, at the devilish tufts of eyebrow so high above those flashing eyes. Then she turned her back and walked out. Sometimes she wondered about that man. No, he couldn't be the murderer. No, he couldn't even kill the water bug in the sink this morning. Grace spun around to see if she was being followed on the footstep hushing carpet in the 3rd floor hall. No one was there, but she heard voices. They were coming from her kitchen. It was nothing, just Otis Amber shouting at Crow, something about losing their clues. I remember them, Otis, Crow replied in a soft voice. She felt strangely at peace. Just this morning she had been given the chance to hide her love in Angela's bag, the big tapestry shoulder bag she carries next to her heart. Now she must pray that the boy comes back. I remember them, too. That's not the point, Otis Amber argued. What if somebody else finds them? Crow, are you listening to me? Crow? No, but Grace Wexler was listening. Really, Mr. Amber? Can't you find another time to discuss your affairs with my cleaning woman? And where are you going, Crow? Crow was buttoned up in a black moth-eaten winter coat. A black shawl covered her head. It's freezing in here. Otis Amber shut the window. Grace opened the window. The last thing I need is a gas explosion, she said peevishly. Boom, he replied. The 2 women were so startled that the delivery boy sneaked up on the unsuspecting for the rest of the week, shouting, boom! Besides shouting boom, Otis Amber delivered groceries from the shopping center to Sunset Towers, back and forth and to and fro. Not only did the tenants have to restock their bare shelves, they had to add Westing paper products by the gross to their orders. Idiots. Just because the will said buy Westing paper products, he muttered, hefting a bulky bag from the compartment attached to his bike. Even Crow was using Westing disposable diapers to polish the silver and Westing paper product towels to scrub the floors. Is that what happened to their clues? Poor Crow, she's taking this game harder than he had expected. She's been acting strange again. Boom! Otis Amber shouted as the intern hurried by. Idiot, muttered Denton Deer. Denton Deer paced the floor. Listen, kid, I'd like to help you, but I'm only an intern specializing in plastic surgery. It would be different if you wanted a nose job or a facelift. He had meant to be amusing. It sounded cruel. Chris had not asked for charity. All he wanted was to play the game with the intern. All the intern wanted was half of the $10,000. I hear your brother suggested sharing clues. Sounds like a fun idea. Fine idea. No response. Maybe the kid thinks I'm the murderer. The tenants must think so. The way they peered over their shoulders and that delivery boy shouting like that. Why me? I'm a doctor. I took an oath to save lives, not take them. I'm a very busy man, Chris. I have lots of sick people depending on me. Oh well. Following his fingers through his stringy brown hair to keep it out of his eyes, when would he find time for a haircut? He seated himself next to the wheelchair. The clues are in my locker. What were they? The rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. F for plain. G, grain, shed. For plain, grain, shed. Chris spoke slowly. He had practiced his recitation over and over, hour after lonely hour. Good grain, oats, Otis Amber. For, shed. She, forward. Ford lives in 4D. Ford, apartment 4D. Good thinking, Chris. The intern rose. Is that all? Chris decided not to tell him about the limper on the lawn, not until the next time. His partner would have to visit him a next time and a next time, as long as he did sign the check. Now about signing the check, Denton Deer said. Chris shook his head. No. On a bench in the lobby, Angela embroidered her trousseau, waiting for Denton. Dad had tried to teach her to drive, but she was too timid. He too impatient. Why bother with driving lessons, her mother said. Anyone as pretty as you can always find a handsome young man to chauffeur you. She should have insisted. She should have said no once to her mother. But just once. It was too late now. Theo came in with an armload of books. Hi, Angela. Hey, I found that quotation, or rather the librarian found it. You know, may God thy gold refine. Really? Angela thought it unnecessary to remind him that it was Flora Baumbach and Turtle who had asked about the quotation, not she. What lush lips, what white teeth, what fine and shiny hair. Theo fumbled between the pages of a chemistry book for the index card. On it was written the third verse of America the Beautiful. America, America, may God thy gold refine, till all success be nobleness, and every great gain divine. Theo had begun reading the refrain and ended up singing. He shyly laughed off his foolishness. I guess it doesn't have anything to do with money or the will, just Uncle Sam's patriotism popping up again. Thank you, Theo. Angela stuffed her embroidery in the tapestry bag on seeing Denton Deer rush off the elevator. Hello, Dr. Deer. How about a game of chess? Let's go, the intern said, ignoring Theo. Sandy opened the front door for the couple, whistling, America the Beautiful. The doorman was a good whistler, thanks to his chipped front tooth. I can't drive you home. I'm on duty tonight. I'll take a cab. Why must you go back to the hospital? Your crazy partner isn't dying, you know. She's not crazy. She made up her so-called wasting disease. I call that crazy. Nothing was wrong with her legs until the explosion in the Chinese restaurant. You're wrong. First you asked me to look in on her. Now you don't want my opinion. Anyhow, I called the psychiatrist. Maybe you should talk to him too. I've never seen you so troubled. What's wrong? The wedding dress isn't ready? The guest list is too long? You have to cope with more matters than that once we're married. Unless you don't want to get married, is that it? Angela twisted the engagement ring her mother made her wear in spite of the rash. No, she did not want to get married, not right away. But she couldn't say it. She couldn't tell him. Them, not like that. Denton would be so hurt. Her mother. The engagement was announced in the newspaper, the wedding gown, the shower. But once they found out she wasn't their perfect Angela. How long has she been sitting here in the hospital corridor? A man in a business suit. The psychiatrist came out of Siddell's room. He must be Angela, he said. How had Siddell described her? A pretty young thing? I hear you're going to marry one of our interns. She was going to get married. Her one claim to fame. How is Miss Pulaski, doctor? Do you mean, is she crazy? No, no more or less than anybody else in town. But the crippling disease. She made that up? So what? The woman was lonely and wanted some attention, so she did something about it. Quite creatively, too. Those painted crutches are a touch of genius. Is that normal? I mean, it's not insane to shock people into noticing who you are. The doctor patted Angela's cheek as though she were a child. No one was hurt by her little deception. Now, go in and say hello to your friend. Hello, Sidel. Without makeup, without jewelry, clothed only in a white hospital gown, she looked older, softer. She looked like a sad and homely human being. You talked to the doctors? It's a simple fracture, Angela replied. What else? Sidel turned her face to the wall. The doctor says your disease is incurable, but you could have a remission lasting 5 years, even more, if you take good care of yourself and don't overdo it. The doctor said that? Maybe a few people could be trusted. Did you bring my makeup? I must look a mess. In the overstuffed tapestry bag, under Sidel's costume case, Angela found a letter. It was a strange letter, written in a tense and rigid hand. Forgive me, my daughter. God bless you, my child. Delight in your love, and the devil take Doctor dear. Hast thou found me, O mine enemy? The time draws near. Taped at the bottom were 2 clues. Thy beautiful. Chapter 15. Fact and Gossip. Friday was back to normal. If the actions of the suspicious would-be heirs competing for a $200 million prize could be considered normal. At school, Theo studied, Doug, who ran, and Turtle was twice as sent to the principal's office for having been caught with a transistor radio plugged in her ear. The coffee shop was full of diners. Shinhu's restaurant had reopened too, but no one came. J.J. Ford presided at the bench, and Sandy McSuthers presided at the front door, whistling, chatting, collecting tidbits of gossip, and adding some of his own. Flora Baumbach, her strained eyes shielded by dark glasses, drove Turtle to school. On her way to the broker's office, and picked her up in the late afternoon with a sheet of prices copied from the moving tape. They lost $3,000 in 5 days. Paper losses, Turtle said. Doesn't mean a thing. Besides, I didn't pick these stocks. Mr. Westing did. Did he? The dressmaker thought of the clue Chris had dropped. No stock symbol had 5 letters or even resembled the word plain. But Flora Baumbach played fair and kept the secret to herself. 4 people stood in the driveways, melting snow, shivering as the sun dropped behind Sunset Towers. The 5th jogged in place. No smoke had risen from the chimney since that fateful Halloween. Still, they stared up at the Westing house, murder on their minds. He looked too peaceful to have been murdered, Turtle said. She sneezed, and Sandy handed her a Westing tissue. How would you know? Doug replied. How many people have you seen murdered? Turtle's right, her friend Sandy said. If Westing expected it, he'd have seen it coming. His face would have looked scared. Maybe he didn't see it coming, Theo argued. The killer was very cunning. Westing said, I read a mystery once, where the victim was allergic to bee stings, and the murderer let a bee in through an open window. The window wasn't open, Turtle said, wiping her nose. Besides, Westing would have heard the buzzing and jumped out of bed. Doug had an idea. Maybe the murderer injected the bee venom in his veins. Otis Amber flung his arms in the air. Whoever said Sam Westing was allergic to bees? Doug tried again. How about snake venom or poison? Doctors know lots of poisons that make it look like heart attacks. Turtle almost kicked Doug. Track meet or not, her father was a doctor. She would not have minded if he had said interns. I once heard about a murderer who stabbed his victim with an icicle, the doorman said. It melted, leaving no trace of a murder weapon. That's a good one, Turtle exclaimed appreciatively. Sandy had more. Then there was a Roman who choked on a single goat hair someone put in his milk. And there was the Greek poet who was killed when an eagle dropped a tortoise on his bald head. Maybe Westing was just sleeping. Until Turtle stumbled and fell on his head, Doug suggested. That's not funny, Doug, who? How could she ever have had a crush on that disgusting jerk? Doug would not let up. And who was that suspicious person in red boots I saw opening the hoods of cars in the parking lot the other morning? He looked at Turtle's booted feet. The thief stole my boots and put them back again. They leak. A likely story, Tabitha Ruth. Doug pulled her braid and ran into the lobby at full speed. Sandy placed a large hand on Turtle's shoulder, a comforting hand and a restraining one. Otis Amber hopped on his bike. Can't stand around chit-chatting about a murder that never happened. Sam Westing was a madman, insane, crazy as a bedbug. He pedaled off, shouting back, We ain't murderers, none of us. Theo could not agree. If there was no murderer, then there was no answer, and without an answer, no one could win. Sandy, did anybody leave Sunset Towers on Halloween night before Turtle and Doug? The doorman scratched his head under his hat, thinking, one day seems like the next, people coming and going. I can't remember. I'll try. Sandy scratched harder. Only ones I recall are Otis, Amber, and Crow. They left together about 5 o'clock. Thanks. Theo hurried into the building to check his clues. Turtle had no reason to suspect Otis, Amber, or Crow or any of the heirs. Money was the answer. Her only problem was that dumb stock market. It didn't want to play the game. Sandy, tell me another story. Okay, let's see. Once, long ago in the olden days, there was this soothsayer who predicted the day of his own death. That day came and the soothsayer waited to die and waited some more, but nothing happened. He was so surprised and so happy to be alive that he laughed and laughed. Then at 1 minute to midnight, he suddenly died. He died laughing. He died laughing, Turtle repeated thoughtfully. That's profound, Sandy. That's very profound. Where's everybody? The apartment was empty as usual. Jake Wexler decided that Shinhoo's was going to have a paying customer. I'd like a table if you're not too crowded. I think I can squeeze you in, Hu said, leading the podiatrist through the empty restaurant. He must have liked those spare ribs. Yeah, sure. Jake watched his wife slowly stack her papers at the reservation desk. At last, seeming to recognize him, she walked over, and Jake returned his unlit cigar to his pocket. Grace hated the smell. I've already eaten, Grace said, sitting down. Hello to you, too, Jake replied. He probably thinks that's funny, since when do people go around saying hello to their husbands? What's new with you, Grace? Where are the kids? And what are all those presents doing on the coffee table? It's not your birthday, and it's not our anniversary. What was she supposed to so upset about? Or is it? No, it isn't. Those are gifts for Angela. The wedding shower is tomorrow. Don't worry, you're not supposed to be there. Just the girls. The doorbell was ringing all morning. I couldn't leave the apartment for an instant. One at a time he delivered them, the smirking fool, and each time he shouted, boom! She looked especially attractive today, Jake thought. Between the ringing doorbell and the boom, she had managed time for the beauty parlor and the sun lamp. Mr. Hu set the spare ribs on the table and lowered himself to a chair. Grace lost her scowl. Since you're here, Jake, I'd like your opinion on the advertising campaign I'm planning. Jimmy and I are having a slight disagreement. I say that Shinhoo's sounds like every other Chinese restaurant to English-speaking ears. English-speaking ears? Jake bit his lip in an effort to keep silent. I said the restaurant needs a name people won't forget, Grace continued, a name like Who's on First. Jake could not remember himself. He tried to cover a loud guffaw, and with loud coughing, Hu pounded him on the back and apologized for dinner. For the ginger. You remember that old baseball routine, Jake? Grace prompted. Yes, he did. Who's on second? No. What's on second? Who's on first? It's an idiotic name, Hu argued. Who's on first sounds like my restaurant is on First Street, or worse yet, on the first floor. Customers will end up in the coffee shop drinking dishwater tea. Not the way I promote it. They won't, Grace insisted. Well, what's your opinion, Jake? The podiatrist put down the spare rib he was about to bite into. Who's on first is a dandy name. Before he could pick up the rib again, Hu whisked the plate off the table. Who elected you, Judge? Anyhow.